Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shane. I run the events over at 10 Capital Network. We have another great session for you today, AI in healthcare spotlighting value. And then we'll also have a pitch from an amazing company after that, Tenzr Health. So stick around for that. With that, I want to bring up Hall Martin and Nicola Marchese. And before they go ahead and take it away from me, I want to remind everybody in the audience to put your questions in the chat box if you have them. And please don't forget to answer the poll at the end of each presentation. So with that, Hall, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Shane. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Today, we have Nicola Marchese of the Scenarionist, who's going to talk to us about AI and where is finding value in the healthcare system. Looking forward to his presentation. Nicola, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I have a medical background, and then I moved to the venture side as a builder and analyst. And today I'd like to share my view, some thoughts about how AI can intersect the healthcare value chains.
Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and kick off into your presentation, and then afterwards we'll take questions, and looking forward to it. Go ahead. Perfect.
So I'll show my screen. Yeah. I can. Okay, can you see clearly my screen?
You're good to go.
Okay, fantastic. So again, it's a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone. I'm Nicola. My background is in medicine. Then I moved to the venture side as an analyst and a builder in the venture side. And then I decided to found The Scenarionist with the aim to increase the flow of know-how, talent, and capital in the tech venture space. So just to start, what is deep tech? Deep tech has many definitions. Mainly is a movement of startup that trying to bring from lab to market a breakthrough, scientific breakthrough. And so for us, is the deep tech means a unique risk profile. So a higher technology risk, higher capital intensity before revenues, and a longer development time compared to consumer apps. So it's mainly stuff for hardware solutions, but of course there are also our solution of software that are AI and blockchain that are really closer to this risk profile. So what about starting where exploring AI in healthcare? Where to begin? So let's intersect healthcare challenges with AI potential. So mainly my idea of today is provide a broader view of which are along the healthcare value chains, the AI potential, AI opportunities that can beat the solution available on the market. And there is the value we are gonna to see today. So starting showing why AI in healthcare today, let's see the healthcare challenges. We can talk a lot about this topic, but the first point is that healthcare market, historically slow in tech adoption, is now rapidly embracing digital health and AI, due mainly to post-pandemic dynamics. And there are two factors that I want to stress today: the rising of healthcare costs and the labor shortage in terms of physicians and nurses. So in terms of physicians, we are talking about up to 124,000 shortage by 2033, and nurses up to 450,000 shortage. It's around a 20% by 2025, especially shortage on home health aides. So a remote solution will skyrocket in the next 5-10 years. And other important things to consider in this trend is that the regulatory innovation and the cultural shift. So the healthcare workers that are commonly provide a high resistance in adopting the technology are moving closer to this trend, because after the pandemic dynamics, this trend is very closer to adopt new technology. So the cultural shift is really important also for sales cycles in the sales of this kind of technology. And then some basic about AI technology. Okay, I'm not an engineer, but it's really important, I think, to understand some basics about AI to understand the clinical application. Basically, we can see AI as a machine to solve problems and to help humans to solve problems. So one basic understanding is the key difference between some subdomain of AI that are machine learning and deep learning. The key difference between machine learning and deep learning is the human feature extraction of the human help in feature extraction. So if we look at the machine learning and deep learning, we can see that machine learning is helped by humans to identify features. This means that if we think about the clinical setting, today doctors have algorithms, and then they can train in task force with the engineers training like a machine learning model, the model to extract feature, and then the machine will classify it, understanding, for instance, if there is or not a disease. Mainly, if we talk about deep learning, we talk about a machine able mainly to extract the feature and classify it. So the good news here will be to create new ways to diagnose diseases. But on the other hand, sometimes it's really difficult to understand the way that machine the pathway where used by the machine to understand if there is a pathology or not. And then this can be a problem in FDA approval. So the second point could be the data requirement, because if we talk about machine learning, we are talking about thousands of data points. On the other hand, when we talk about deep learning, we are talking about millions of data points, and we'll discuss later the limits of the technological risk, but you need to understand that thousands of data compared to millions of data is not a matter only of cost, but is a matter also to access a database with such high quality data to train your algorithm. And a light note about convolutional neural network, that is a subdomain of deep learning, because the convolutional neural network is the optimal technology to understand, to extract feature from images and audio files. So is the key to solve the next problem in the healthcare challenges, I think, in the next 5-10 years. Of course, it's a deep learning, so it's complex and it's expensive today, but we'll look into that in a minute. Then, where is capital going today? If we look at the funding of US startups from 2018 to 2023, we can see that apparently the AI-related funding that we can see below in blue seems to follow the same trend that the non-AI funding are following. So after 2021, there is a decrease of this trend. But if you look at closer, the percentage of US venture funding of VC going to the startups really close to AI, we can see not only that the startup trend is holding its position, but also is increasing up to the incredible number of $1 to $4, according to Crunchbase, that is investing in 2023 only in AI-related startups. So bringing the conversation to the healthcare, where is capital going in AI in healthcare? So to discuss this point, I prefer to stress not the amount of capital, but where is the capital going through along the healthcare value chain, because of course AI cannot solve all the problems of healthcare, but there are some points in the value chain, some problem in which AI can overperform other solutions. And I've taken this US market map based on the data I found on a report made by a group of VC that analyzed 145 companies for a total of 20 billion and 47,000 employees, and analyze it can show us some information really interesting to analyze this trend. First of all, there are 5 clusters of startups that have raised funding in AI in healthcare that are life sciences and all the technology that may bring closer AI to patient, to clinician, to analytics and administration. And of course, life science is the bigger one, but another important point is that venture capitalists start to finance project in life science closer to AI, for instance, new drug discovery or clinical trials driven by AI, since 9 years ago. Then they move to finance patient-facing clinical and analytics and administration as defining mainly the main segment in which the funding comes out. Then I decided to move to, for the reason why I have not, and one day to talk about this topic, I've taken 5 application where AI can really be closer to the needs of an hospital and healthcare settings. The first one is AI in radiology. And radiology is the fastest growing area in AI in healthcare because is one of the most ancient application of AI including the sector of pathology, because as is easy understandable, is based on images. So moreover, to frame the problem, WHO claimed that up to 80% of diagnostic problems are solvable with basic radiographic or ultrasound exam, but 2/3 of global population lacks access to diagnostic imaging. So there is a huge gap here that AI can really innovate, can really bring solution. And here, the name of the game in terms of technology is, again, convolutional neural network, because it's one of the most efficient technology in AI that can analyze images and extract diagnosis. And after the Google DeepMind use case as AI as a co-pilot for radiologists, not a replacement of the doctor, but of course a co-pilot, so it can cut the time to diagnosis, make the workflow of the radiologist really cleaner and really easier. So this solution, and in the healthcare settings, can bring the time slower. So in a field like radiology, cutting time to diagnosis means saving lives and means cutting healthcare costs. And again, another comparable situation we have in AI in pathology, because of course pathology is a matter of analyzing images and extracting output diagnosis. So in this case, we have also the potential synergy to analyze with emerging hardware solution. If we think about the intersection of AI in pathologies with the new semiconductors that can run generative AI on these images, or we think about the photonics, the nanotechnology, we can obtain maybe a more accurate information. And the literature is full of these examples that are closer to the market today. And the convolutional neural network, again, can be a way to find the right technology as fast as is required for the pathology to have a co-pilot, and cutting the time, and on the other hand, support the fact that will be the shortage of workload in this sector. Then another point I find really interesting is the remote diagnostics. So if we talk about point of care device, we have we mean all the tests like the COVID test that in real time on site, without traditional labs, without trained personnel, can obtain a diagnosis in remote places. So the limit of the point of care devices, of course, if we think about obtain the accuracy of a diagnosis outside the hospital, is the hardware side. So the hardware need to be cheap, need to be as much powerful as to extract, to identify small molecules. So the limitation of point of care today is the understanding of is there is or not a small molecule with a small hardware. Then if you think about the AI role here, we can see the overlapping of the hardware of the AI, overcoming the hardware limitation, enhancing the accuracy, optimizing the calibration for point of care devices. Again, here also we need to think about new hardware solution like nanoparticles that can enhance the signal of molecules. So there is a new trend probably in the next 5-10 years where AI powered point of care device will allow a faster, reliable diagnosis, really accessible for more and more people. And sorry. Another field really interesting, of course, is telemedicine. Telemedicine is not something new, probably, but after COVID, is a must for a doctor to use telemedicine to visit patients. However, there is to date still a problem because there is a screen behind the doctor and the patient, and the AI is developing. The AI trend is developing new tools like a new stethoscope for telemedicine that allow in the future, will allow in the next 5-10 years more and more accurate information the doctor can achieve from a remote solution. So this means the distribution of the care, more accessible care for all, and it's really scalable because maybe our software solutions, and of course the same topic we discussed about the point of care device is the same about the wearable devices, because if we think about the miniaturization of a hardware, we of course have again the limit of the small hardware on a wearable device, and the generative AI can extract more and more information and can overcome the limit of the hardware barriers. And lately, it's really interesting, the teledermatology, because there will be a tremendous lack of dermatologists, and the diagnosis is mainly based on images. So it's an interesting trend for the near future of application. And then lastly, I would like to talk about AI as an holistic approach for chronic diseases, because of course, we're talking about improving a test, improving a visit, but if we understand the size in the problem of chronic disease, so diseases that mainly need to be managed outside the hospital, and we think about that will be the shortage of nurses and doctors in the outside the hospital in remote places. The AI is mature enough today to bring to the market a mix of HR analytics, chatbot, and speed recognition, and wearable and point-of-care devices to manage the whole chronic disease. So there will be, I think, in the next 5-10 years, a tremendous number of solutions that will really impact on the healthcare cost and bring the healthcare really more efficient, especially in rural places. Then this is a bonus slide out of topic, maybe from the clinical side, but it's really focused on the problem that I can solve in healthcare. Because if you think about the shortage of labor, the workforce in the AI, there will be in the future a tremendous need to train new doctors and new nurses really faster. And so given that today there are 1.3 million global medical students, and we think about how much that it costs to train one single doctor, and there is a global lack of instruction materials, equipment to train them, and there will be a tremendous need to replace the workload. I think that AI potential with its potential of simulation, personalization, and scalability, because it's a software, can open really new market in this area, so the medical edutech. And I think if you look at some market analysis, $1 billion market here in the next 5-10 years. So I think it's undervalued today. Then just to talk about some barriers and limitation of AI in healthcare adoption. First of all, when you talk about healthcare, we talk about FDA. But as we mentioned before, FDA start innovating and open new pathway for approve more and more algorithms. So to date, there is an exponential approved wave with more than 210 algorithms approved, and so these barriers can be overcome. And also there are a huge limitation, and there are the cultural mindset of the doctors. But again, after pandemics, doctors start to use telemedicine and monitoring systems. So this barrier can be surpassed. But there are, for instance, the data and the quality of that can be a barrier, because as we mentioned before, if we talk about machine learning, we talk about thousands of data. If we talk about deep learning, we talk about millions of data. So if you need to create a startup, to fund a startup, or you are collaborating with your capital to create a startup, you have to look at the technical side of this data, because data needs to be secure. So it's a matter of cybersecurity. Data needs to be of higher quality. And so there are problems that can be really taken in consideration before starting this kind of project. Then algorithm accuracy is another problem, because of course, if the model of AI is trained by an algorithm that clinicians approve, it's easier to pass the FDA. But on the other hand, if we talk about deep learning and start using some models that can extract feature by itself, find new ways to maybe find more accurate way to identify some pathologies and diagnose some diseases, it can be a problem for FDA if it's not clear the algorithm that the machine used to identify them. And then the competition, of course, healthcare is very competitive, is a very competitive field. So new entrants in the market maybe can find some barriers to take a niche of market, but on the other hand, it's something to consider it when you draft an exit strategy from day one. So interact with some big player would be a good idea from day one. And then lately, healthcare challenge is complex, so it's full of stakeholders. So it's a mix of clinicians, it's a mix of patient reimbursement strategy, FDA, and so on. So maybe the integration of AI could be a problem in a real setting hospital. So when starting approaching a new project in this topic, it's really important to understand really well which is your roadmap and use the right consultant to guide you. And then this is the end of my presentation. Just I would like to show our activities as a think tank. We are going to develop new analysis and dissemination information. So if you subscribe to our channel, we have a newsletter at thescenarionist.org where monthly we interview experts, and also we develop deep dives on several topics of deep tech, not only healthcare. Then in 2024, we will start to open to one-to-one training session and collaboration and partnership with investors and corporates to dive into some specific topic they require. So if you have other questions to me or some other ideas, write me an email, and it's a pleasure to chat. So thanks for your attention.
Great. Thank you, Nicola. Great presentation. Those in the audience, if you have a question, please post them. My first question has to do with the FDA. Given the importance of AI to so many things, medical devices, therapeutics, and other things, are they going to change the FDA path and actually put an AI step in there or another approval step to ensure what that AI algorithm does?
I think it's early to say that, because things are moving fast, especially in 2023, and there is a lot of innovation in terms of understand how to accept or and to how to create new ways to analyze algorithm. But I know that FDA, I'm not an expert in this field because there are consultants focused only in the FDA, but the point is that there's much in the algorithm, where there's much which is the pathway that the machine does, and which are the features that extract to achieve a result, is the much is easier to pass this FDA approval. The point is that many times in many studies, deep learning has overperformed the accuracy, but the problem is that it's really difficult to understand exactly which is the way that the algorithm does to understand if there is a disease or not. And so if you figure out the FDA application, you have to prove that what your algorithm does. Also, if provide a higher accuracy on the data, but the pathway, the methodology is the key here.
Sure. In a previous life, I worked on software-defined radio, and the regulatory didn't look at just what it could do, but rather what the potential outputs could be, not just what it's supposed to do. And the same thing here. If you want a black box and you want to test all the inputs to see all the outputs, can you really do that with an AI system?
Yeah, I think the point here is to bring to the reality on the table and divide it from the science fiction. So if you need to solve problem, you need to understand which are the variables, which are the parameters, and then to understand how they are solved in reality. And you have to bring in what in medicine is called physiopathology, what is the parameter, and understand really well that which is the path. So in this way, you avoid to take some, I think some pathway that are not related to clinician, and then one day you discover that the algorithm is taking a pathway completely far from the solution you are needing to solve. And so I think FDA is really focused on understand this discrimination, and and I stop here because I'm not an expert focused on FDA. So
Okay.
my idea of today is to provide a general overview.
Well, you mentioned a number of different places where AI was coming into place. If you had to pick one or two that you think will be the early winners as far as giving results sooner rather than later, what would you, which of these five would you call out as being the place where we'll see the earliest results?
Yeah, okay. As I write in every slide, this is not a financial advice. However, one of the first the administration task, I think they will skyrocket before the clinical application and all the ones I mentioned before. Because if you really focus on what is the early adoption in healthcare, you have to think about that today. In the hospital, there is a shortage of workers. So the first thing you need to do if you are an hospital administration is to move administration tasks away from the doctors so they can be focused on what is really more important in the hospital. So I think that with the natural language processing of ChatGPT, that today within simple API can take all your data if they are written, I can believe that the first application along the healthcare value chain will be for sure administration and analytics in IT. So from the medical perspective, the most maybe boring, but the most useful today. And then, of course, they will move for patient monitoring and clinician, and later the drug discovery that, of course, has given a lot of good results during COVID pandemics, but we need to think about the cost of design a drug and deliver a drug. So I think that today the administration task would be the first one.
Great. Well, we've had a presentation where it was clear that there were not enough radiologists and that this technology could enable one radiologist to cover more patients. And they were going from, say, one radiologist to 100 patients to one radiologist to 400 patients. So it's a 4x increase. Where do you think that kind of savings can be found? And what other sectors are you seeing that opportunity?
I think that radiology is a good point to start also because radiology, I think until 1995, there are stories there are the documentation of AI application and maybe before. And so it's one of the more mature segment. But if you think about this, you're an engineer. So if you think about what convolutional neural network can does, I think that all the sectors that can easily extract information from images or audio will be really interested in. So I think also wearable device in terms of monitoring chronic condition will be really interested in new application because convolutional neural network can easily extract information and I think that it need to be cover case by case because of course we can use imagination, but there is a need to be focused on the market while there is a problem to frame and a solution to provide.
Great. We have a question from the audience. More and more integrated healthcare systems are putting more focus on population health, including the social determinants of health. What are the near-term opportunities for AI to manage and improve population health? And who is experimenting with population health AI applications now that you know of?
Okay. For the second question, who is exploring? I don't know really. And I don't want to say something that I don't know, but the point is that the population health require data. So the point is that I think one of the most important trend to look at, in my opinion, is remote monitoring. Until the remote monitoring will not be so high, there's not so much data to collect, and so there will not so many features to extract. So if you think about as you said, population health, you need a large amount of data. So for instance, in Europe is not so advanced like in US. So if you need a data from a population, you think you are closer to remote monitoring, and I think the application now are closer to what FDA approval will prioritize. And so we need to look at them before. And the remote monitoring will be the first case use application. I think about chronic diseases like diabetes, asthma are really broad and in the population. So will be the first case use, I think.
Great. My last question has to do with regulatory. I've seen AI in other industries manage the regulatory process. You type in your question and it can comb through the voluminous amounts of information on regulatory and give you a cogent answer. Where do you think that's going to be useful in the healthcare space? What areas do you think will be using it for regulatory management more than anything else?
Could you rephrase, please?
So the regulatory in healthcare is very complicated. There are many rules. I've seen many AI systems be applied to reading regulatory rules and giving you an answer to your question because they're very dense and very complicated. So I was curious if you knew of any applications where AI was going to be helping with regulatory and how it was going to be implemented.
So I think if you mean if AI can, if I understand well, if AI can help FDA to understand or not if some algorithms need to pass or not. Really?
Well, you're a doctor and you want to know what the regulatory rules are around a procedure or a Medicare or a Medicaid contract. You can type it into AI and it would research all of the Medicaid rules and come back and give you the detailed answer.
For instance, all the kind of approach that pass through the examination of a text will skyrocket simply because today the technology is mature. So the point is that one of the main important application I can see in a startup that have been mapped by those guys that provide the data are the clinical notes. So the doctors spend a lot of time to writing, and there is a tremendous opportunity to cut the time the doctor used to writing down the notes by using AI. So because this is a text, and of course, if you talk about research, the FDA rules or research, which is the best way to design some application, and everything that is related to the text will be for sure skyrocket before something else.
Great. We did have one more question come in the Q&A box. It says, most of the applications discussed were focused on traditional medical. Are there any applications for efficiency in behavioral health?
Okay. So can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So are there any AI applications for behavioral health? How can it improve mental health and behavioral health conditions just like it does traditional medicine?
There is a trend is in the field we have called clinician facing. I've seen some of them. There are many startups that are able to interact with the patient, but I really honestly I don't understand. I don't know if there is a proven scientifically about their results, but I know there is a huge number of startups coming out with focusing on behavioral health and focusing on interact like a chatbot with the patient. And but of course, my vision of today is a broader vision, and I'm not a vertical domain in this topic.
Well, great. And then one quick one is, we have two main areas AI is being used in the field, as in hospitals and clinics, where it's assisting doctors, or two, it's behind the scenes in the drug discovery and the research and development. Where do you think the wins are going to come from, out front or behind? Is it going to be at the hospital level where people are reading radiology documents, or is it going to be behind the scenes where they're building better medical devices and finding new drugs that come out of it?
So I think that it depends case by case, because if you think about design a new medical device and so on, okay, it can be at the need of AI in certain places and certain not. So I think healthcare is really a broad area. So it depends really on the problem they are trying to solve. So one of my role before working at the Scenarionist was to identify the unmet clinical need. It's really important to identify some target problem. For instance, if I if I identify that there is a lack of communication in a certain word round, and there is a need to maybe to map all the discussion by the doctors, so in this way they can cut the time. Could be a good application, but you need proof of them, and there is a need of intelligence, because AI needs to be focused on the real problem to use the capital efficient to achieve capital efficient and efficient of the hospital. The second point is about the FDA, because okay, we can see AI in several applications, also in surgery, and but the invasiveness brings ahead a closer FDI examination. So it's more risky to design this kind of device compared to, for instance, diagnostics. And so again, it depends case by case. And the third, I think that it's really closer to what the doctor needs. And I think today's the most important part is that engineers chat with doctors and really understand, in the executive of hospitals, understand really closer their needs.
Great. Well, thank you so much for those great questions. What we'd like to do now is bring up Lucas Mary of Tenzr Health, and looking forward to your feedback on it, Nicola. Lucas, if you go ahead and launch your slides, love to do a check and have you kick off.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Nicola, for that. I'm going to take over your screen sharing. Perfect.
Sure.
I have a lot of comments to share around what you just presented on, but we'll go through the deck first. Great. Now let's see if PowerPoint. Thank you, folks, for being patient. My name is Lucas, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tenzr Health. And we are a Mayo Clinic-backed AI digital health company, improving outcomes in physical medicine by gamifying rehab. Injury care in North America is broken. While 1 in 2 Americans suffer from musculoskeletal injuries, there's a massive shortage of therapists to treat patients, leading to long wait times. Clinical outcomes are poor due to low patient compliance with rehab, caused by lack of clarity and motivation in the rehab process. I was a perfect example. When I was 23 years old, I hurt my back quite badly, resulting in 2 herniated discs, and had to hobble around in pain for almost 4 years. No one could give me a clear, measurable, actionable path to recovery or assure me that I would recover. So my co-founder and I joined forces to completely overhaul the musculoskeletal care paradigm, and together we've built a management team who are expert in quantified health, gaming, wearable technologies, go-to-market in physical medicine, and scaling and exiting health tech startups. I'm a serial entrepreneur with experience in healthcare and consumer wellness packaged goods. My co-founder Gautam led and scaled product development at a Class 3 medical device startup called LungPacer Medical through their pre-seed, seed, Series A, and IDE approval through FDA's Breakthrough Devices program. And our Chief Commercial Officer, Gabriel Rodrigo, has over 25 years of go-to-market expertise, taking physical medicine products like Tenzr from launch to 100 million in annual revenue at companies like PowerBar, GameReady, and AlterG. If you ask any therapist or orthopedist about AlterG and GameReady, they know those products, an anti-gravity treadmill and a cold compression system. Both those products change standard of care in PM&R. Then we have Torsten Kanisch, who's our lead angel investor and board member, executive officer at AstraZeneca Japan, and leads their commercial operations, digital health, and innovation teams. We also have a commercial advisory board composed of investor advisors with expertise in health policy, remote monitoring, payers, and retail health. And we have a medical advisory board composed of experts in physical medicine and rehab and surgery, with some of them also being investors in the business. So our big insight is turning the recovery journey into a clearly defined, engaging, multi-level game, providing patients with a motivation and certainty to complete therapy effectively. So why gamification? Well, in a game, a client has a clear map to accomplish their goals. They know exactly where they are in the journey and what to do next. They're immediately engaged. The present challenge is suited for their skill level, in our case, mobility level, and they see the instant reward of the work put in. Gamification also provides a sense of community and fun competition, in effect counteracting the loneliness people can feel when dealing with those issues. In other words, a game experience is the opposite experience of going to physical therapy today. So in this next slide, hopefully it renders over Zoom in a second here, you'll see our patented medical sensors that are used to engage patients by measuring recovery status, turning the exercises themselves into games, and then using that data to create the shortest AI-driven recovery pathway for each patient. And this gives therapists objective data on recovery status, allowing them to adjust treatment and flag patients requiring further intervention. And by doing that, clinics can actually generate additional reimbursement revenue, a triple win across the board for the payers, the providers, and the patients. So from a market perspective, huge market opportunity in the US, over 150 million people with those injuries. But within that is a rapidly expanding new market opportunity called remote therapeutic monitoring, RTM for short. As of last year, Medicare and private insurers are reimbursing providers for providing remote therapy monitoring using solutions like Tenzr. And within that, we have a beachhead focus on the highly consolidated hand therapy market for RTM. Think of conditions like carpal tunnel syndrome, wrist fractures, sprains, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, or spasticity due to a stroke or spinal cord injury. And yes, we will be expanding to the rest of the body starting early next year. So we have a B2B business model, SaaS business model. Every clinic added generates $14,000 of revenue per month with 86% gross margin. And the reasons that clinic adopt us is because we can increase their reimbursement revenue by up to 20% per episode of care or per patient. And secondly, we reduce their wait time and improve outcomes for them so they overall become more competitive in the market. Customer acquisition is scalable because once we're in, we're in. And what I mean by that is really hard to disrupt products that have been adopted by clinics and integrated into their workflow. And secondly, there's a lot of room to increase contract value. The 14K is purely based on their hand therapy patient population, and will go substantially as we address the rest of their patients, knee patients, ankle patients, shoulder on, and back and hip. And thirdly, yes, there's a hardware piece involved. Right here, the wearables. These are reused between patients. A patient is typically on the platform for 2 months. They get discharged objectively for the first time in PM&R, and the second patient starts using it. And because of that reuse, we have an 86 gross margin kind of business. So from a traction perspective, we've recently transitioned from pilot to signed commercial contracts and multiple accounts generating revenue. We have a fully developed and operational FDA-listed medical device. We've seamlessly integrated into the clinical workflow of over a dozen clinics. And more importantly, we've proven that Tenzr patients are 3 times more compliant with rehab compared to industry standard. We've also proven the ROI for clinics by demonstrating an increase of up to 20% of additional revenue per patient from payers like Medicare, United, Aetna, Anthem, and the Blues, both in California and Florida. And we've done all this with a proprietary tech stack that is defensible and protected by a US patent. And we have massive growth potential. We have active pilots transitioning to paid contracts at large hospital systems, including Mayo Clinic, UCSF, and Cedars-Sinai. Now, to keep up with this momentum and be at so many clinics and at the top institutions of the country, we're raising a quick $750K convertible note round. 80% has already been committed by existing investors, new investors, and owners of physical therapy clinics. It's a convertible note with a very attractive value cap of $7.5 million, 20% discount, 5% interest, and the use of proceeds is to increase sales volume and scale operations. So with that, I invite you all to join our journey to level up the recovery experience for us and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Nicola, what is your first question there?
Okay, thanks for the presentation. It's really interesting to use gamification in the recovery. So I think that I could. Okay, my question for you is that which kind of deal you do with you are going to do with the B2B in terms of reimbursement strategy? And
yeah. So just sorry, go on, Nicola. Did I interrupt you there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you want to understand the mechanics of our deal, the B2B deals, and then the reimbursement. So the care paradigm, so we enable a new revenue stream for clinics called remote therapeutic monitoring, very similar to remote physiological monitoring, but it's not it doesn't measure vital signs, it measures musculoskeletal status, range of motion, for example. And so there's 4 CPT codes that the clinic can bill and get paid for. And so the clinic can make somewhere between $120 to $160 additional revenue per patient per month. And then we charge the clinic $35 per patient per month. And so if you look at a typical clinic that we're currently partnering with, they have about 8 therapists on staff. They treat 25 to 32 new patients a month. And so at scale, just based on the hand therapy population, you're looking at a $14,000 MRR for us. And the clinic will make approximately $15,000 without hiring new staff. Very important. So it's a pure margin business deal for them. And so it helps them improve outcomes because the data is coming back. Then they can also manage their busy caseloads in the sense of they can finally know which patients should be coming in instead of, a one-size-fits-all solution. And that's actually happening as I speak right now with our clinical partners. They're able now to triage their wait times. They love that component. And then also the data coming back from the system also allows them to aid their clinical decision-making. So they can now advance and pull the patient accordingly. They can intervene as needed, and they can make it more challenging, ensuring that the patient doesn't drop out. The problem with our industry, I'm talking about all the value propositions there, but the problem with our industry is published data, 70% of patients drop out of therapy altogether. Anecdotally, it's 90%, but we need to address that. That's a big problem. That's why people are not recovering effectively, and then they re-trigger their injury, they go back into the system. I was a perfect example. I did that for 4 years. I went through 8 providers, right? And so I was a big waste on the system. Anyways, long-winded answer to your question.
No, but it's clear. Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We have a question from the chat box. That's how soon before you get to knees and legs will bigger body parts require complex tech like mirror or tonal, or will there be a lower tech solution for that?
No, perfect. Lower tech solution. So these wearables, I'm just going to take off my my blurry video here so you can actually see. So the wearables have already been developed for the whole body. So those are the wearables. You just pop this out. You just have a larger strap for the knee, or like pretty much the upper leg and the calf. And since you can already measure the wrist continuously, you can measure almost any other joint on the body. And so we're using the same form factor. The gamification engine has already been fully baked. And what I mean by that is we take clinical exercises. So therapists don't have to learn anything new. They prescribe the clinical exercises, and then our gamification engine translates that into games. So, they use set parameters like reps, range of motion, mobility, type of exercises, and that gets translated into a fun, engaging experience for the patient. And the main crux of the question is, when is this available? So our ankle and knee product will be available like 1 per quarter starting next year. So for the knee, ankle, shoulder, back, and then hip. So those 1 per quarter, we're releasing extension to the platform starting next year. And then, so the problem with mirrors and tonals is then you have to have a big piece of product in a room, right? With our products, people are doing the exercises anywhere they are, whether they're at work, at a coffee shop, at home, in a different, they don't have to be in the room with a tonal or mirror product. And it's way cheaper as well. So we can discuss those details.
So the next question is, what's the role of AI here? Is it just in the gamification part, or is there a feedback given to the patient by the AI, and is there an actual back and forth communication between the AI and the patient?
There's four levels of AI, and I'm going to start with rudimentary. I wouldn't call it AI, it's machine learning. So we use machine learning for our algorithms, for our tracking algorithms, ensuring that we're always accurate to ±1 degree of range of motion over time. This is what we call a digital continuous goniometer that's being used for gameplay. So that's step 1. Number 2. Step number 2 with AI is, yes, we have based on the patient's performance, how well they're complying we have a continuous reminder where, it's being monitored if the patient's complying. If not in 48 hours, they get automatically informed that, hey, you should be exercises. If they do not respond to that input or prompt, then, that gets escalated to the therapist. So there's a bunch of rudimentary AI being used for that, like pretty much patient follow-up, on top of what our customer success people do. But obviously we keep trying to increase their capacity so they can support more and more patients. And then the other thing is we have AI in the gameplay. So if a patient is doing well, the game gets harder and gets more challenging. So that's another layer. And then really the more exciting part of our AI game is, for the first time, we are collecting what a recovery pathway looks like for a specific condition. And what I mean by that is, we say you have a wrist fracture. Typically, you should be discharged within 3 months, but no one really knows how many reps of exercise you should be doing day over day, what type of exercises are the most optimal exercises, and how much range of mobility, you should be improving day over day, week over week. And we're really collecting this data for the first time, because ultimately in a year or two, when we have treated tens of thousands of patients, we can then identify patients that are at risk of dropping out, and then inform the therapist, hey, you must intervene. Or guess what? We're looking back at the last 100 patients with this condition. Here are the specific exercises and prompts that were used to get this patient back on track. And that's the really exciting part of our long-term AI play. But we have to collect the data because the data doesn't exist. And so that's why we've developed the platform that we have, to finally have an optimal recovery pathway. And what I mean, for people on the call, what I mean by that is, you have an injury. Unfortunately, today is a one-size-fits-all. Independent of the injury, you get the same number of sessions authorized by your payer, whether it's 12 or 18 sessions. The frequency of those sessions are set automatically by the clinic, 2 a week or 3 a week to start in the first 6 weeks, and then 1 a week after that. Again, not based on any clinical data. It's just a precedent that was set via protocols back in the 80s and the 70s, and hasn't been really clinically proven out. And so we're finally going to be like, okay, you have this injury based on the 10,000 patients that have had this condition. You need exactly 6 in-person sessions. That's the exact frequency that you should be going into the clinic. That's how much dosage of exercise you should be doing in between sessions. And more importantly, maybe you want to complement that with massage therapy or chiropractor or whatever it may be, depending on your condition and your severity. So anyway, the long-winded answer, but that's how we think about AI long term.
The follow-up is, so there would be a periodic in-clinic follow-up by an actual physiotherapist. Is that right?
Oh, that's already, yes, exactly. So really what we are today is we are optimizing the journey in between rehab sessions. Because right now what's happening is you have leakage across that recovery pathway. 20% of patients drop out within the first 3 sessions, 70% drop out altogether. And so by ensuring that the patient's engaged, that they're on track, that they can measure their clinical progress once or twice or 3 times a day, they stay engaged and continue to go back into the clinic and utilize those sessions and get to reach their full course of recovery, or full plan of care, in other words. And so we are really a hybrid option. So we are both in-person care plus exercise therapy at home.
A bit like a portable glucometer?
Yes, but not only monitoring, we're actually engaging, right? We're therapeutic. We're actually engaging the patient in exercise therapy. We're making it fun, engaging. And then we measure range of motion, which should be the glucose monitor analogy. So we go beyond RPM, beyond patient monitoring. We're monitoring and engaging, and then using that data for intervention by the therapist in real time.
So my last question is, are you doing anything with the data outside this application? Are you making separate products, providing additional information to the physician? Is there any data play going here?
Yeah. So everything that I just mentioned earlier would fall into that, like where we, down the road, we're aiding clinical decision making. We're actually also impacting so because of what therapists now are confident, they no longer have to depend on self-reporting and guesswork in between sessions. They know what the patient is doing because they get that in their clinician portal from our end. They can now start to change what they're going to do with the patient in person. And so become more effective with their time, way more effective with their patient during that 45-minute session or half an hour session, depending on the payer and hospital system. And on top of that, the gamification or engagement platform that we're building can be applied to other areas of medicine, right? We could use same principles to people with weight management, for example, on a weight loss journey. Or, you know, if someone's pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, can we help them, you know, become less diabetic, for example? So you can apply this platform to other areas of medicine. Obviously, right now we're focused on musculoskeletal care, but we're learning a ton around human behavior, patient engagement, and then more importantly, creating data-driven recovery pathway, and also making it into an engaging multi-level game. So patients have certainty, they know what the end goals look like, they know how many levels they have to unlock to get to the final, you know, to get to full recovery, in other words.
So the last comment is, I guess the data on patients' compliance can be used to create a profile assessment to anticipate potential lack of compliance with other therapies. That's excellent.
Yep. So if I understand that comment correctly, that's correct. Yes, exactly.
Great. Well, we're near the end of our time. Thanks, Lucas, for a great presentation. Nicholas, thank you for your presentation as well. Appreciate you both joining us today. I want to thank the audience for great questions and being a part of us today. Glad to make connections with both of these speakers here today. We had polls, but you can also reach out to us and we're glad to make introductions. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today, and we'll see you guys next time.
The whole no breakout session, right? No breakout session.
There's no breakout session on this one. It's just this one. And
okay.
Let's
Perfect.
see. Yeah, and that's it for today. Great questions, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, awesome. Nice to meet you, Nicola.
Thanks.
Nice